Could the present be just a mirage of our mind? What if the present only exists in our perception, something that slips away the very moment we try to hold on to it? Why does a workday at your desk feel endless, while a night at a concert seems to vanish in an instant? What makes time so inconsistent? We've always thought minutes and hours are the same for everyone, but are they really? What if our perception of time is just an illusion? Or maybe it doesn't exist at all?
In this video, we'll explore why our perception of time is so inconsistent, what makes it speed up or slow down, and how this understanding can change your life.
And this isn't just a video. It's a perspective on time that will change how you see it forever.
1, 2, CogniQ.
How long do you think you could last without knowing what day it is? Back in 1972, French geologist Michel Siffre decided to find out. He spent 6 months in a Texas cave without light or clocks. Why? It was part of a NASA experiment to study how isolation affects humans, prepping for future interplanetary missions.
Bart says that we got a call from NASA?
Siffre lived in a cave with no sense of time. Food and water were delivered regularly, but clocks? Not a single one. Without external signals, his body's natural rhythms began to change. He lost track of time. Soon, his days stretched to 25 to 26 hours. And that was just the beginning. Each day, his body clock sped up. At one point, he felt like his days lasted 32 hours, and his nights just 16. Can you imagine? Some days stretched to 48 hours, twice as long as normal. The big shock came when the experiment ended. On day 179, they told him it was over. And Siffre, he was stunned. He thought he'd only been in the cave for 151 days. It was a big realization of how much his sense of time was off from reality.
His sense of time got so messed up, he was almost a month off. Enjoying the moment is one thing, but what if your sense of time starts fooling you, especially when you're all alone and everything feels frozen around you?
Similar effects were observed with others too. For instance, in 1988, Veronica Ligon spent 111 days in a cave, but came out convinced it had only been 42 days. You know what? These experiments reveal something big. Our sense of time isn't real. It's created by our brain. Understanding this can help us handle stressful or boring moments and make them easier to get through. Psychologists and neuroscientists say that subjective time is just the brain's interpretation of signals. It doesn't exist outside our minds. Just like color, it's not an objective reality, but a result of how our brain interprets electromagnetic waves.
But how can time be more than just a feeling? If it's so personal, what really controls how we experience it? And what if what we call the present isn't really happening right now?
Now let's flip the script and look at this through the lens of science. First, a bit of philosophy, and then something mind-blowing. We all know time moves, but have you ever stopped to think about why it flows the way it does? And more than that, it's not just moving, it's actively shaping everything around us, including the way we perceive reality.
But that's not all. What if I told you the way we measure time isn't as accurate as we think? Want to know why? Take Einstein's famous thought experiment, the train paradox. You've probably heard of it, but have you ever thought about the crazy conclusions it reveals about our reality?
Imagine this, a super long train, 250,000 miles long, speeding through space at 125,000 miles per second. In the middle, a person fires 2 bullets, one forward and one backward. Let's assume the speed of the bullets is equal to the speed of the train. When the person fires, from the train's perspective, the windows break at the same time. But for someone watching from the platform, the windows break at different times. Strange, isn't it? Here's the deal. The bullet fired backward breaks the rear window after 1 second, but its speed relative to the platform is 0.0. Imagine it like someone throwing a ball into a strong wind. It just hangs in the air. So, on the train, the bullet travels backward at 125,000 miles per second, but to the observer on the platform, it appears motionless. Now, the bullet fired forward would need to travel at 250,000 miles per second relative to a stationary observer outside the train to hit the front window in 1 second. But that's impossible. It's faster than the speed of light. As a result, from the platform's perspective, the forward bullet won't move at the required speed. This is the effect of special relativity. Time slows down to prevent exceeding the speed of light.
So, for an observer watching from outside the train, the windows break at different times. First the rear window, then the front one. This proves that time is perceived differently depending on your point of view. And it's not an optical illusion, but an incredible and objective reality.
This basically shows how the time-based relativity works in our world. Two people in the same reality can experience the same event completely differently. Crazy, right? So, what do we end up with? According to Einstein, time isn't what we're used to thinking of it as. We think of time as a straight line stretching equally for everyone. But physics tells us it's way more complicated. Understanding time relativity leads to a paradoxical conclusion. Time isn't universal. It depends on how fast we're moving and where we are. For different observers, time can flow differently. Imagine a river, rushing wildly in some parts and barely moving in others. Time works the same way, bending and stretching depending on the conditions around you.
Now picture this. Instead of one stream of time, there's a whole network connected to each observer. Confusing? What if we're all living in different realities where time flows uniquely for each of us?
Or maybe all of this is just one part of a bigger picture, because despite all the theories and experiments, the phenomenon of time remains a mystery. Time isn't just numbers on a clock. It's something way more complex and enigmatic. I think we don't need to know what time really is. I think it's enough to simply understand that it exists and affects us more than we might think. So, what if time isn't just something we perceive, but something we can change in our perception? A way to live in a world where we control time instead of letting it control us. What happens when we try to capture the moment, when we attempt to truly feel the present? The answer to this question might completely redefine how we understand time. Here's an interesting thought to mess with your head. We all know you can't bring back a past moment, and the future is just an abstraction. But what if that's not entirely true? What if the present isn't a moment at all, but a continuous process we can't pin down? Take one of the most striking cases that changed our understanding of time. The experiment involving British music critic, musician, and conductor Clive Wearing. After a severe infection, his brain lost the ability to form long-term memories. It's a rare and devastating case of amnesia that makes every new morning a completely fresh start for Clive. Every day he woke up with no memory of the day before. His life was like an endless cycle of awakenings. Each morning, he met his wife again and realized he'd just woken up, but he had no idea where he was or what had happened. For him, every day was a new beginning. All he knew was that he woke up in that moment. Here's the fascinating part. Clive's memory only lasted 7 to 30 seconds. Everything after that vanished, leaving only the fleeting present. He couldn't remember what came before or mentally rewind time. Each morning, Clive wrote in his diary, "I woke up," then reread his entries to understand where he was and who he was. He didn't even remember writing them. All he knew was that he woke up in that moment. Sometimes his diaries became a desperate attempt to hold on to some sense of continuity, but he always forgot he'd already written it. One of the most vivid depictions of what it's like to live with such a challenging condition can be found in the Christopher Nolan's 2000 masterpiece, Memento. If you're curious to see how someone constructs logical connections between the past and present, without the ability to remember events from just a few minutes ago, it's a must-watch. But what does this tell us about time? It's not just amnesia, it's much deeper. Clive's sense of time, like ours, is closely tied to memory. Without memory, the concept of the present can't exist. For him, every moment was essentially a new beginning. Each morning was like a new version of himself. No past, no context. And this challenges our idea of the present. For him, the present wasn't a moment. It was an empty space between awakenings.
So what can we take away from this? It sounds strange and even unsettling, but for Clive, the present didn't exist the way we understand it. Each moment was isolated, with no connection to what came before. This makes us realize that our perception of time heavily depends on memory. And maybe, time isn't just a sequence, it's a mechanism that creates continuity from scattered moments.
Perhaps for us, the present isn't so much a specific moment, as it is our experiences and memories that tie those moments together. We create our temporal reality, shaping it around our experiences and recollections. For Clive, time was like a wall, where each morning he found a new door but never knew what lay behind it.
And here's an interesting thought. What if our perception of the present isn't just a moment, but more like a seam of memory that stitches all moments together into a single picture of reality?
For us, the present moment feels continuous, but perhaps it's just a product of our perception. The brain doesn't allow us to notice the gaps that might occur in our awareness. That's its job, to make time feel continuous, even if it isn't.
Have you ever paid attention to the moving second hand of a clock? Sometimes it ticks, sometimes it glides smoothly. It all depends on the type of clock. But here's the twist. Even the smoothest motion is made up of tiny jumps. If we slowed it down enough, we'd see those breaks clearly. Same thing happens when we blink or close our eyes for a moment. We simply don't notice it. Our brain acts like an editor, seamlessly stitching together the moments we see while removing the dark gaps. This makes us believe we're seeing the world continuously, with no interruptions or out-of-focus moments. No hiccups, no skips, just smooth sailing.
We perceive time as a flow that never stops because our brain weaves each moment together, hiding the real jumps in time. So, how do we experience moments when everything slows down or speeds up? How can minutes feel like an eternity while a whole day vanishes in an instant? In such moments, we notice not only what's around us, but also how time starts playing with us. And this is where we realize that time and our perception of it are not the same thing. What if the ticking of a clock is merely a symbol, and our brain adjusts the flow of moments, stretching or compressing them as needed? Could it be that we're living in a finely tuned illusion? We don't just sense moments, we shape them. We're the directors of our reality, molding it through the lens of our perception of the world. And here's where it gets really interesting. If we can influence how we perceive moments, could we actually learn to master them? And if we could, how might that change the way we understand our reality? This opens up an entire universe of possibilities. What if we could learn to slow down or speed up our perception of time to live more mindfully? Maybe we can make time not just something that slips away, but something we can use, control, and direct. Let's recall what physics tells us. Time in Einstein's theory of relativity isn't what we're used to thinking of. It's not just a single line stretching forward. Time is more like a flexible substance that bends and reshapes depending on the conditions. And what if we could learn to control this time using the same physical principles that cosmologists and astrophysicists use? Perhaps we can influence our perception of time by changing the conditions under which we experience it. For example, how time changes in extreme situations when we feel intense emotions. Have you ever felt like time slows down in a critical moment? Like during a frightening event or a challenging situation? It's not just a feeling, it's a real reaction of our brain to external stress. This phenomenon even has a name, time dilation. But how does it work? Why does the brain make time slow down when we're in danger? When we face a threat, our brain activates mechanisms that increase our attention and focus. At that moment, we start perceiving events with immense detail. It feels like time slows down, but in reality, we're just processing events more fully.
What if we could use this time dilation to reshape how we experience reality? What if we could train ourselves to pause moments and live them more deeply? Imagine if you could slow down time in your memories, making them brighter and sharper. Maybe we can't control actual time, but we can learn to control how we perceive each moment, making it more meaningful.
Maybe mastering moments isn't about physically slowing them down or speeding them up, but rather about how we perceive each one, how we're able to capture it in our memory. What if time isn't just something we feel ticking away, but a story we tell ourselves? Maybe it's not about what's happening out there, but how our brain edits the chaos inside us. Picture this. Every moment isn't part of some endless river, but a little masterpiece we create in our heads. What if time isn't a flow, but a scrapbook we're constantly adding to? This is exactly how the protagonist of the movie Memento, which I mentioned earlier, perceived time. His memory reset every 5 minutes. Turning each new scene of his life into a separate page he opened anew. He relied on photographs with captions and tattoos to remind himself of important events or actions.
Next time I see you, I'm not going to remember this conversation.
Now let's talk about our inner clock. Not the kind you hang on a wall, but the one ticking inside us, helping us figure out when it's time to sleep or binge watch another episode. Our biological clocks, or circadian rhythms, aren't just about telling us when to sleep. Think of them as tiny gadgets running the entire show inside us, from energy levels to how we perceive time. And here's the kicker. What if they're the reason some days feel like they last forever, while others are gone in a flash? And here's what's interesting. Some scientists believe that our biological clocks aren't just reactions to external conditions like light or darkness. In a way, they're internal clocks that work based on how we experience events. Ever noticed how time stretches like chewing gum when you're in love or having an emotional roller coaster? It's like your brain opens a photo album and decides every picture deserves a double-page spread. That's why the happiest or craziest moments feel so sharp in our memory. Your brain takes a mental highlighter and marks them as special, making time feel slower or faster depending on the mood. This is why some days feel like a Netflix show on double speed, while others stretch out like the final season of your least favorite series. But what if we could actually hack our perception of time? Imagine learning to hit slow-mo on life's best moments, making each one shine brighter than a Christmas tree. Every time we dive headfirst into the moment, it can feel brighter, longer, and way more meaningful. If we learn to appreciate every moment, time can stop being that elusive shadow slipping away and instead become a companion guiding us to live life with meaning and intensity. Time doesn't just vanish. It's like a quiet passenger, tagging along with us in every experience. The question is, do we notice it? If we learn to dive fully into each moment, we might not just manage time, but turn life into something richer and brighter.
By the way, have you ever wondered why time seemed to move so much slower when you were a kid compared to now? Why does each year feel like it's speeding up as you grow older? Stick around till the end of this video. I've got a rock-solid explanation that will leave you amazed.
Physicists like Richard Feynman argue that time isn't a process you can neatly describe in a single word. For example, in his groundbreaking work on quantum electrodynamics, Feynman revealed how particles can interact in ways that completely challenge our intuitive understanding of time. In his book, The Strange Theory of Light and Matter, Feynman brilliantly breaks down the complexities of QED, making even the most mind-bending concepts accessible to anyone curious enough to explore. Time is a fascinating concept that's hard to pin down. Sure, we can measure it, but it doesn't really exist outside of our perception. We create time as a way to make sense of the events happening around us. Our brain has the amazing ability to regulate how we perceive time. When we focus entirely on the present moment, time seems to slow down, and every second feels like an eternity. We can intentionally create these moments by adjusting our internal rhythm, speeding it up or slowing it down. Mindfulness is the secret to mastering time. Take meditation, for example. It changes how we experience reality, turning moments into vivid, unforgettable experiences. And this isn't just theory. It's a practical way to truly feel alive. Here's a simple way to slow down or speed up your sense of time. Focus deeply on the present moment and let yourself fully engage with what's happening around you. Let's start with the simplest thing. When you wake up in the morning and start your day, how often do you truly feel the moment? We often go about our actions automatically, not thinking about what we're doing. Morning coffee, the commute to work, it all becomes routine, and time flies by unnoticed. But what if you change your focus? Try starting your day with full mindfulness. Feel the smell of your morning coffee, the warmth of the sunlight streaming through the window. Just enjoy this moment, without rushing or thinking about what needs to be done next.
But let's be honest, this might mean going to bed earlier so you can wake up without the usual rush. Or maybe it's time to rethink your job, find something that doesn't force you to rush out the door before the sun's even up, or tweak your routine to make mornings less of a scramble and more of a moment to enjoy. And not just mornings, your whole day might feel different too.
When we focus on simple actions, time seems to change its pace. It doesn't drag on forever or rush by. It simply flows. Every movement, every look feels like stepping back into the most authentic present moment. This principle can be applied to any situation, whether it's spending time with loved ones, working, or simply relaxing. Pause and feel what's happening right now. Don't chase after time, let it move at its own pace, and you'll be surprised at how differently it starts to feel. Now, let's talk about why time feels so different in childhood compared to adulthood. It's simple. As a kid, the world is like a blank notebook. Every day you're filling it with new faces, words, places, buildings, animals, gadgets. Everything feels exciting and your brain is soaking it all up like a sponge. Now, take a look at yourself as an adult. Every day feels the same. Work, home, maybe a bar on the weekends. The sounds, the faces, the views, they're all too familiar now. There's barely anything new. Even your own kids seem to grow at a snail's pace. Change happens so gradually that we barely notice. And time? It works the same way. The more new experiences you invite into your life, the slower time seems to move. And that's why we have theme parks, shows, and travel, to fill our lives with fresh moments and slow time down. Want to stretch time? Start traveling. That's exactly what many retirees do. They explore the world, turning each day into something special. They're literally slowing down their aging. Investing in experiences is investing in time. Think about it. Maybe it's time to add a little adventure to your life? Remember, each day is your chance to create something truly meaningful, and only you decide where to invest your time. Now, a question for you. What will you do tomorrow to make that day memorable? Write about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to smash that like button if you found something useful in this video. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on our fresh takes and ideas on how to live a more mindful and meaningful life.
1, 2, CogniQ.